Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the Orb, Dr. Alex Paterson and Jimmy Cauty of KLF. And, they got together in 1989. That's when they started working together. And it all culminated at the point where they put out under John Peel in Great Britain, under one of John Peel's sessions. They recorded some of their music, and from there on they worked together, and they worked together on a chill out album, which Jimmy Cauty did not give credit to Dr. Alex Paterson for working on that album, and so they split apart. And during that split, Youth from Killing Joke got together with Dr. Alex Paterson, and they started working on their debut album, the Orb's Adventures into the Ultraworld. So Dr. Alex Paterson, or Alex Paterson, was a roadie for Killing Joke, which was Youth's guitar-driven rock band during the early 80s. And then in 1986, Alex Paterson decided to break off from being a roadie and started DJing music at nightclubs. And through this arrangement, he started DJing with Jimmy Cauty, which was Youth's friend. And in 1988, they got together and started DJing under the name The Orb. And they also started making music. And the fallout between Jimmy Cauty and Alex Paterson was when Jimmy Cauty didn't give credit to Alex Paterson for working on the Chill Out album. The one with the sheep in the countryside. There's a picture of all the sheep just sitting around. So that's the album that they released, and because there was no credit, they had a fallout and they broke up. So with that, Youth got together with Dr. Alex Paterson and started working on their first album. Actually started working on Little Fluffy Clouds, which was sample driven from the very beginning, with a rooster, and then you can hear like a lawnmower, and just the layering of sounds, right, and layering one over another to make this very psychedelic song, which you could possibly think that it's country music, but obviously, it's not country music, but it had a kind of a flavor of a countryside song, but obviously it wasn't. It was a dance, kind of a chill out song, which they decided to go towards chill out, more kind of a laid back vibe, because they first tried to mess with beats, much more rhythmic beats. But after messing with beats for a while, they kind of decided, well, let's just forget about the beats and work more towards a kind of an ambient, more laid back vibe. And so that's how they decided to come up with this ambient house approach. And I mean, the album itself is really one of the best albums to come out in 1991. It has a lot of samples, and which Alex Paterson and Jimmy Cauty were run through the courts because they used a lot of sampling, and unfortunately that's what happened. And but as far as the music goes, it's all kind of geared towards like space and Final Frontier. There's a lot of really cool samplings, like for instance on Earth there's a sample of these two people talking and going through space, and they come across this planet, and it's called Earth. And so they decide, oh, it's so peaceful, let's create something, let's create mankind. And so it could be considered in some ways blasphemous, but for the sake of the music, it is really beautiful. It's really laid back, and it's Earth Gaia is a beautiful song, one which has a sense of humor behind it in some ways. And then The Backside of the Moon is also a really good song. It has like this bass playing at a very comfortable pace. A lot of people that were into the rave culture, into dance music altogether, enjoyed the Orb because they were more laid back, and as it were, there were several different rooms at a nightclub, and each room had a different vibe. And of course the Orb was in the chill out room, and at first there were like 10 people, or give or take 10 or 20 people that came to listen to the Orb in the chill out room. But as the months progressed, 6 months onto a year, a lot of the people liked going into this chill out room to, for instance, chill out from the hard beats of the techno music and house music. And that's where it all started, really. The Orb is one of those groups that are kind of have a revolving door as far as what members are a part of the group. But Alex Paterson has been one of the members of the Orb that has been there from the very beginning till recently, and for instance, Thomas Fellman from Berlin. Thomas Fellman is a DJ, techno, dance music DJ from Switzerland that moved to Berlin and kind of pushed the Berlin scene early in the early 90s, late 80s, and actually put out some really good techno music, because Thomas Fellman is one of the later people that came into the orb, including Chris Weston, and also there's other. My point is that a lot of people think of the orb not as a group, but as a collective group, sort of, because every time an album is put out, there's like a mass exodus of people that go away from the orb, and then there's new members that come in with a new album. And throughout the years, a lot of the time, Jimmy Cauty has come back, and Thomas Fellman has gone away and come back. But for the most part, it is the group is run by Alex Paterson, and Alex Paterson has a really a love for reggae music from Jamaica, from the Caribbean, and you can hear that influence within the orb. On their debut album, most of their songs are they're geared towards ambient house music, but you can the kind of rhythm in the beat that you hear throughout the album is kind of sort of sounds like reggae. And reggae music, I have to say, has a lot to do with dance music in general. It started off with reggae being in dance music being influenced by reggae music, and you can hear it throughout the Orb's debut album, without a doubt. Perpetual Dawn, which the first time I heard the Orb was back in 1995. I was working with a friend and a co-worker of mine, and he was a good friend of mine. I went to the CD store to buy actually Moby's Everything Is Wrong album, which was released in 1995. And this friend of mine that I worked with, he told me that he saw that I bought the album, and he said, what do I think about it? And I told him that it starts off with him, which is obviously there were so many versions of him that Moby put out, but the one that Moby decided to put on his album was the ambient version, or essentially the piano version, which was very light and very ambient and essentially had minimal beats. And I told him it sounds heavenly. It's so great. Although, as you know, I liked the more upbeat version a little bit more because I was into the techno music, but I told him about the first track on Everything Is Wrong, which is him, and it was essentially ambient, And with that, he told me, well, if you like that kind of music, I know of a group that I really like, and I'll bring it to work, and I'll lend you the copy. And that was the Orb's adventures into the ultra world. And he told me, when he gave it to me, lent me the copy of his of their debut album, that kind of disregard the first track. It's kind of strange, but starting with the second and third track and onwards, you'll hear that they have really good ambient music. And essentially, I guess you could say that the Orb is what the group that kind of got me into the ambient music genre. Prior to that, I was kind of reluctant to get into the ambient music because it wasn't really like dance music, to say, it wasn't anything like techno or house music, which really I enjoyed very much. But with this album, which he lent me, that totally changed my thought processes, and I felt like, oh my gosh, this is actually really good music, especially the second song. And I listened to the first song, which was Little Fluffy Clouds, and I kind of disagreed with him on the fact that the first song was too crazy and out there. I thought it was amazing. It was Little Fluffy Clouds with all the sampling, and just it was unique beyond compare to anything I heard prior to that time and back in 1995. So of course it was 1995. Little after that, I went into the CD store and bought the Orb's 1995 album, Orbis Terrarium, which is absolute bona fide classic. But beyond that, prior to Orbis Terrarium, this album, their debut, was classic for sure. Perpetual Dawn, Into the Fourth Dimension, Earth, and then Supernova at the End of the Universe. Those songs are just absolutely classic. You can't go wrong with them. They're so beautiful. And by the fact, Perpetual Dawn, back in 1995, it had a different version of Perpetual Dawn. It had like singing in it. But if you happen to get this album now, Perpetual Dawn has barely any lyrics in it. It's still good, but I still prefer the one where they sing Perpetual Dawn, Infernal Sunrise. Anyway, that's the best version, which now the only way to get it is probably to find it on extended release, which or actually there is an album that the Orb did put out with all these mixes that are rare, but back in 95 they weren't rare, they were just on the album. Anyways, my point is this album really started the genre of ambient house. Obviously ambient music has been around with Brian Eno and obviously Jaw Wobble, and also there's the famous collaboration with Brian Eno, The Pearl, with the pianist he passed away recently. Not Brian Eno, but the guy that he collaborated with on The Pearl from 1984, which I can't think of his name right now. But nevertheless, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the Orb, Alex Paterson. So throughout the years, the Orb has been very productive in putting out different albums. And at one point, Thomas Fellman kind of took over the Orb, because Alex Paterson was busy doing some other things, but this album truly is a knockout when it comes to ambient house. If you haven't heard of ambient house, you should start with this album first, and you'll be amazed at how beautiful it is. So anyways, my favorite tracks, like I said, were Into the Fourth Dimension, Earth, Little Fluffy Clouds, which is around 4 minutes long. All the other songs are very long per se, like they're 9 minutes or 10 minutes, starting with 9 minutes and a few seconds long with Earth, and then of course it just gets longer and longer, 10 minutes, 14 minutes, 15 minutes, and that was the kind of the vibe that people would go for when they listened to the Orb, and when they went to the chill out rooms, these expansive songs which were so where anything goes essentially. And it was so interesting to hear all these different songs which have different ways of expressing themselves apart from hard beats, right? So as far as the ranking of this album, it's definitely up there, and I'll tell you this, it's a 10 out of 10. I know I've been giving some 10 out of 10 albums, and honestly, this album is one of my favorites from way back to 1995 when I was a teenager. And I've thought about reviewing this many times on this channel, but I was always thinking, I should wait to review this album, because it's so up there it's like one of my top 10 albums that I love. And so I might be biased, but the fact is that there's no way around it. This album was game changing for the ambient genre, and essentially creating a new genre in dance music, or within the dance culture, and that it's ambient house, which I think Thomas Fellman had a lot to do with in creating that sound. So Jimmy Cauty, of course, was with the KLF, and which was very popular. It was a KLF are famous for burning on TV, £1 million just to get attention. I would think. Why would you do it otherwise? But the KLF were pioneers in house and trance music, and so Jimmy Cauty even though he was in the beginning with the Orb, he kind of they split and went their separate ways, Alex Paterson and Jimmy Cauty. But the fact is that Dr. Alex Paterson was afraid that people would perceive the group, the Orb, as a side project of the KLF, and so he decided to split apart from Jimmy Cauty and retain the name the Orb, and from there on just kept on releasing album after album. Yeah, so I mean, that's essentially it, man. This group has pioneered the way and kind of popularized ambient music. Of course, Brian Eno was the one that coined the phrase ambient music, but the Orb did a lot to popularize it within the British dance culture in the early 90s and also the late 80s. So anyways, I hope you like this review. I also really like Star 6789. That's another song that is just amazing. I love the motorcycle boom boom boom. I mean, there's so many fun and interesting sound bites throughout all the songs that it just keeps you on your toes and makes you want to hear more and more, right? So this is essentially one of their best albums, but of course there were some more good albums after this, but yeah, I mean, for instance, Alex Paterson is still going strong and putting out albums, and you know, so this group has been active from the very beginning of dance culture, which kind of popped up on the scene from Ibiza in 1987, where Paul Oakenfold came from Ibiza and kind of started DJing kind of an eclectic mix, and this essentially is like an eclectic album which kind of goes over the top in many ways, and but succeeds in doing so. So anyways, that's it for this review. I appreciate you listening to it, and this is one of my favorite albums of the Orb, and I'll leave you with that. I'm gonna review. I have some other albums that I'm gonna be releasing as well that I've been reviewing, or that I want to review and I've been listening to. So keep in contact. Give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe, and let me know what you think about this review. I'll see you in the next video soon. Bye bye.